Okay, I'm going to go ahead and start. So I am Debbie McKay, and I'm the current president of the League of Women Voters. And tonight we are very pleased to be able to provide this presentation about how to run for office, how to run for either city council or town council. And this presentation is being sponsored by the League of Women Voters. We are recording it. We are also planning to do a Spanish translation, and both this recording and the translated recording will be available on our website next week. So tonight you are privileged to hear from several local citizens who successfully ran for city and town council, as well as from one of our league members who's going to tell you the more technical aspects about running for office. So I wanted to let everybody know this event is being recorded. If you have any objection to being recorded, then you probably aren't going to want to participate, and you could watch this presentation later on. I also wanted to let those who are watching this on YouTube live tonight that if you'd like to know about future presentations like this, you can go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube page. We will be doing candidate forums in the fall where we do nonpartisan candidate forums, and you can find out what the candidates think about various issues. And if you want to be notified when those are coming up, go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube page. So the last thing I want to cover before we get started is if you have questions tonight, you can submit questions to our Gmail account. That is lwvsonomacounty@gmail.com. And once we're done with our presentation, we'll be taking questions. We'll answer as many of them as we can. We probably won't get through them all, and we'll try to follow up with those we don't answer tonight and getting back to you by email wherever we can. So with no further ado, I want to introduce you to our panel members. So I'm going to start with Karen Weeks. Maybe you could wave, Karen. Karen is a league member. She also has been staff to a couple of successful campaigns, so she does know what she's talking about. Next, we have Esther Lemus, and Esther is the current vice mayor for the town of Windsor. She's actually taking time away from her council meeting tonight to join us, and she probably will have to leave before this is over to get back to her council meeting, but we really appreciate her taking the time to be here. Next, we have Lee Pierce. Lee, give everybody a wave. And Lee is also a former vice mayor for the city of Santa Rosa. And next we have Marta Cruz Concepcion, and Marta is a city council member with the city of Cloverdale. We also are welcoming Victoria Fleming. Victoria, you want to give people a wave? I forgot to ask you, Marta, to give people a wave. And Victoria is the current vice mayor for the city of Santa Rosa. So thank you all very much for being here this evening and sharing your expertise. And so we're going to launch right into it. We're going to start off with Karen, who is going to talk about the importance of gathering together a good team, because no one wins an election on their own. So Karen, I'll turn it over to you at this point.
Thank you, Debbie, and thank you, everybody, for being here. As Debbie said, I'm going to talk just briefly about the importance of gathering a team and some of the tasks your team members can do. It's very important to develop a strong core group of people who can help you, who you really trust, and who can help you with the campaign and take on certain tasks of the campaign. Because the candidate, those of you who have been candidates know you can't do it all. And so it's really important to have some people that you can hand off things to. Some of the crucial positions are a manager and coordinator who would take on the overall view of the campaign and keep things on track, a treasurer, and that's very important because there are certain financial forms that you need to fill out and send into the state, which we'll talk about later on. And also that treasurer can be the signatory on the checking account as well as receive and deposit the checks that come in for your campaign. So you as a candidate don't need to be doing that. And then volunteer coordinator, that could be somebody who takes on recruiting volunteers to do precinct walking. And this year is going to be different because with COVID, precinct walking is probably going to be pretty much non-existent, but you still would need somebody to find locations for your signs, to track where the signs are, somebody with a truck that can take the signs out and put them up and take them down. And then somebody who would be doing the social media for you so that you don't have to do those postings yourself. Some candidates hire a campaign consultant, and even if you do that, it's still really important to have a group of volunteers surrounding you who you can trust. And that can go with you to events, can debrief with you after an event, and kind of give you that boots on the ground evaluation of how things are going in your campaign. So that's
I thought I would ask a couple of you to tell us about your experience. So Esther, do you want to start and tell us how you pulled together a team?
Sure. So my team was I loved hearing Karen speak about the ideal team. I did not have a very large team to start off with. At the very beginning, when I started my campaign, it was literally just me and my husband and my kids who we brought along. You know, sometimes they were unwilling, but they came along and helped as well. Eventually, as things picked up, as a candidate, you're very busy. You're preparing for forums. You're seeking endorsements, filling out endorsement applications, fundraising. And so it is important to have others who can also serve as supporting team members. So I did have a treasurer, and my treasurer also updated my website with all new updates. As the campaign progressed, I obviously ended up getting volunteers to do help me out with precinct walking. My council race was my first time having the really, really large signs, which actually take a lot of effort to put up. You actually have to buy special tools and equipment to actually put them up. And so my brother-in-law and my sister actually were the ones who really assisted me with those, kept track of them, drove around to make sure they were still up because they fall sometimes. And again, as the election approached, really, I had a lot of family members who really stepped up and assisted, and we really went full force towards the end. And so that's just a summary of some of my team. You really count on these people, not just for the precinct walking and all of the boots on the ground, but also for their support of you as a candidate, because it's an interesting journey, and it's filled with ups and downs. And so, it's nice to have people there in your corner who are there to encourage you as well.
Thank you. Victoria, can you tell us a little bit about what you did to pull together a team? Oh, sorry.
Thank you. What did I do to pull together a team? Let's see. I had worked with a strategist before and had some community members that I had experience with, and so I just started. It might seem more daunting than it is, because these technical terms around like strategist, consultant, and all of that. I was really lucky because I had worked on other people's campaigns before. And if it's something that, if you're thinking about running and you're not sure whether or not you want to run, a great way to figure, to kind of get acquainted with it and have it seem less daunting is to volunteer for another campaign. So that's really set me up well. And then I did Emerge California. So a lot of the stuff that we're talking about, like I learned, and I kind of had it's one of the worksheets is to try to identify those people. So, for this season, not that it's impossible, but it is, if you've never thought about running a campaign and you're just getting in now, don't lose hope. But if you're not sure, it's okay to, give yourself a couple of years to plan and build those networks and start networking in the community. And inevitably, you'll find people who want to support you and your vision.
Thank you. So now Karen's going to tell us a little bit about the paperwork that's required for filing and where to file.
So as in anything related to government, and I speak as a longtime government employee, it's bureaucratic and there's a lot of paperwork. To begin with, to be eligible to run, you have to be 18 years of age, be a registered voter in the city or town where you are running, and not be disqualified from holding office by the laws of the state of California. And I don't quite know what those are. And I'm going to show you a couple of, I'm going to try and show you a couple of sites from the Fair Political Practice Commission, FPPC, and I'll be referring to that a lot. That's a wonderful resource. So let's see if I can go ahead and do this. Okay. Oops. Okay, hold on. Okay. So this is a local candidate committee checklist that is on their site. And it goes through the different forms that you would need to fill out. So nomination papers for eligible candidates may be obtained from your city or town clerk beginning actually last Monday, the 13th through August 7th. And you need to collect 20 signatures. It's a good idea to get more because the city clerk or town clerk will review to make sure that people are actually registered to vote. And when you have districts, the signatories have to be from people who live in your district. So that's a little more tricky than if it was just the general city. And then after that, you file a 501, which is your declaration of candidacy, which is right up here. And then you file that with the clerk. And then there's another form called Form 410, which you would file also with the clerk and with the state Secretary of State of California. And that they will then give you your campaign number, which you will need to, when you file any forms with the state, you need that campaign number. And then there's a Form 700, which is where you have to disclose your economic interests. And a lot of these forms can be done online or it can be done electronically if it's available in your community. And when you meet with the city clerk or town clerk, they'll go over that with you and let you know if it can all be done electronically. Make sure I got everything with that. I did. Okay, that's it on the paperwork. Back to you, Debbie.
Okay, I need you to stop sharing your screen.
Okay. Thank you. There.
So now we want to share a little video that we have. This is a video that I'm going to share on my screen in just a second. Let me get this.
Hello, I'm Stephanie Williams, the Santa Rosa City Clerk. In 2018, the City of Santa Rosa transitioned from at-large to district-based elections. Through a series of many public hearings and draft maps, the City Council narrowed its selection down to a map dividing the city into 7 districts. In 2018, the seats for Districts 2, 4, and 6 were filled when John Sawyer was elected to represent District 2, Victoria Fleming was elected to represent District 4, and Tom Schwedhelm was elected to represent District 6. The November 2020 election will transition the remaining at-large seats into district-based seats, providing representation to Districts 1, 3, 5, and 7. Registered voters residing in these neighborhoods will vote for district representatives for the first time in the November 3rd election. The council candidate nomination period opens Monday, July 13th and closes on Friday, August 7th. If you reside in District 1, 3, 5, or 7 and are interested in running for a seat within your district, please make an appointment with me by calling the City Clerk's office at 543-3015 or emailing me at swilliams@srcity.org. There are many things that need to be done before a nomination is filed, including completion of the nomination petition, a statement of qualifications, campaign statements, a declaration of candidacy, and more. To ensure that you have everything in order by the close of the nomination period of August 7th, it is important that you schedule your appointment with me in the City Clerk's office as soon as possible. At your appointment, we will go over the necessary forms that need to be filed and fees paid to make sure that your candidacy nomination is filed by the deadline. At the City Clerk's office, we are observing all social distancing protocols and hygiene protocols and are requiring face coverings for anyone entering the building. We are also asking that you only bring one other person with you to the appointment. If you are unable to come into the City Clerk's office in person, please do not hesitate to contact me so we can make other arrangements for your appointment to get your nomination papers filed. Running for public office is an important way to contribute to your community, and the City Clerk's office is here to help you through the process and for you to get involved. For more information, visit srcity.org/2020 election. Thank you.
Two other cities have moved to one other city, Roanoke Park, has moved to district elections, and Windsor has also moved to district elections. Karen, do you have those maps?
I do.
Okay. So people can see where those districts are?
Oops, whoops. I think I do. Okay, so when I scroll down, I can. So this is Santa Rosa, and as Stephanie said, it's the odd number districts that are up this year. The even number districts were filled 2 years ago. So 1, 3, 5, and 7. And then let me get to, oops, hold on. This is Windsor's map, and it's District 3 is up this year, as well as an at-large mayor is open this year. And then Roanoke Park, it is 3, 1, and 4, 1, 3, and 4 districts that are up this year.
Great, thank you. So, Marta, can you unmute yourself?
Yes.
We'd like to hear more about what motivated you to run for city council.
Well, I had just arrived to Cloverdale after residing in Santa Barbara for a while, and I was running a couple of election candidates there, and I was kind of hot. It was kind of fun running some of the campaigns there, and I saw that there was a need for a new voice here in Cloverdale, and I went for it. I also noticed that there's a big percentage of Latinos in Cloverdale that have not been part of the discussions at the table, and I thought it was time for that to happen.
Thank you. Lee, are you with us?
I am with you.
Can you tell us what motivated you to run, and maybe tell us when you ran?
Hey, wait a minute. Where did my live picture go?
I don't know.
Yeah, I was on there before I went to get a glass of water, and then I came back and stuff. Let me see if I did something on my.
We hear you fine, though.
Okay, well, Lee's working. Oh, there you are. Okay. We see you. You got to unmute yourself, though. You got to unmute, Lee. Unmute.
We go.
There you go.
I think there's little gremlins around here or something.
I think so.
Yeah.
Wolves in the garden.
Okay. So let me start off by thanking the Women's Suffrage Project celebrating the 100-year anniversary of the right to vote, and also you, Debbie, as the president of the local Sonoma County League, for coordinating with Leslie Graves of the Suffrage Project to put this on. I think this is really a nice thing to do for those contemplating running for office. So with that said, can you repeat your question for me?
Yes, I was asking what motivated you to run for office, and maybe you could tell us when you ran for office.
So the motivation, I think, has to begin within you. And it is something that I've been here in the county since 1977. And the whole time that I've been here, I have been called to serve on various boards, community, nonprofits, committees and commissions, as the first person to chair the Private Industry Council for 2 consecutive terms. All of those things got me interested in understanding better how a city, a county, a town, a municipality works. How do the roads get there? How do the homes get built? How does the water and sewer function? All of this kind of stuff. So I had a real curiosity about that. So I went down to Barnes and Noble. This was back the first time I ran in 2002. And I picked up a book off the shelf that was called How to Run for City Council. and one of the things that it had in there that I think holds true today for prospective candidates to really think about this. The alternative, of course, is you could hire a consultant and they can handle all this stuff. I didn't know about all that back then, which was probably a good thing. And so I assembled a group of individuals that I personally handpicked from throughout the city of Santa Rosa. And one of them was my 12-year-old granddaughter, who's now a married woman and a graduate of Mills College with honors and all that. But she's very smart, so I wanted a youth perspective. Then I went to the real estate and construction type people and women and minority, myself and a couple other, just to try to broaden it out and get a perspective of the community. And so we had a good time putting together the concerns that they saw and the platform and all that, and everybody was like, "Go do it, Lee." So it didn't take much after that for me to go do some of the things that Karen spoke of earlier, which are very important things for prospective candidates to really take note of, because some of that could be daunting if you had not considered it. And yet, on the other hand, once you've done it once or twice, it's like riding a bike or something. So that's my short answer of how I first got into it.
Thanks a lot, Lee. So now something I want to ask all 4 of you, because this is really key to a successful run for office. How did you convince your family and friends that this was a good idea and that they should support you in running for office? Because it's a huge commitment to run for office. It takes a lot of time to serve. So how did you convince family and friends that this was a good idea? Esther, do you want to start?
Sure. Interestingly, in my experience, sometimes you get people who are trying to convince you to run. And so I actually had a lot of people, I had several people like behind the scenes really encouraging me to run. I had for many years, it was at the back of my mind, like, oh, maybe one day I will run for city council. But it was interesting in my situation because the support began to build on its own behind the scenes. And ultimately, my husband was behind me the entire time, encouraging me, telling me, you have to do it, it's your time. And ultimately, it really, it became my decision. But with the encouragement of a lot of people behind the scenes who were there. And so I really didn't have to convince my husband. My family, I know that they're always there to support me as well. I also have been pretty involved in the community. I work with the DA's office, and at the time I was the what's called the community prosecutor. So it was a community prosecution program, which put me out in the community quite a bit. And so I think it always helps when you're involved out there, because you establish relationships, and again, so the support, it lines up behind you. And I think that was something that was a very positive thing for me, aside from also having served on the school board at that time. So that's how it worked out for me.
Great, thank you. Marta, can you tell us how you got support from your family and friends?
Well, I have my husband here. I don't have any other relatives. But he has always been very supportive. In the 27 years we've been together, he's been very supportive of all my initiatives and all my projects. And he had seen me work very hard with other candidates in the past, and he thought that it would be okay for me to bring a new perspective to Cloverdale. So he was very supportive. And again, just like with Esther, there were other people in town who had come to me to encourage me to run. And I thought it was too soon because I had just moved here. But, some of the community members and my husband, and ultimately it was my commitment to work for 4 years at this for Cloverdale.
Thank you. Victoria, how about you? Oh, we can't hear you. Victoria, we can't hear you.
Maybe she needs to unmute.
Sorry about that. I don't know why I was unmuted. Hey, sweetie, you probably want to watch that first. I'm on a webinar. At any rate, my parents moved here in 2017, and my husband at the time was pretty supportive of it. And my daughter, who
Victoria, can you get a little closer to your phone?
For a slightly different perspective here, which is that, honey, you were here at the time, you're sick now. Sorry, she has a lot of opinions on this. But okay, thank you. Sorry about that. So what I'm trying to say is that at the time, it was something that I just knew within myself, kind of to what Lee is saying, that I had to do. And I don't know that that everybody who wants to run or who would be a great candidate has great family and friends. And I don't want anybody to be discouraged if you don't have that sort of infrastructure. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it. That if you've got something inside yourself, you can't ignore that. So.
Great, thank
That's
you.
all.
Lee,
Thank
Lee,
you.
do you have anything you want to add?
Yes. Am I unmuted and all?
Yes, you're good to go.
Okay, good to go. Like that. So, I really do believe that your family, particularly your partner or your spouse, and significant other, whatever the case may be, definitely has to be a part of the decision, as well as other close family members. So because you never know how the press is going to treat you, and they all love you, the family that is. And if the press does something mean to you, they're not going to like that. Okay. And it's going to be tough on them, tougher perhaps than yourself. I'm an old Army guy. I can handle anything people want to throw, but I certainly don't want those who love me to feel that the comments or whatever are binding and real and all that kind of stuff. So you really got to make sure that you're on board with your nuclear family and friends. After that point, I think it becomes understanding what the heck your platform is. What are you running on or about? Because that is going to be the most asked question throughout your entire campaign. And I'd like to offer that veteran insiders of politics and campaign, gadflies and stuff like that. Everybody, that's the first thing they're going to ask you when you come to an event. Why are you running? And people like to call that a 30-second elevator speech. If you can't tell them why you're running, the time it takes an elevator to go from one floor to another, then you better go back and prepare again, because you have to hone it down to that succinct level. I think Victoria and Marta and certainly Esther will all agree that that is the most significant question you will be asked, whether you're interviewed by the media or you're applying for support with an organization or something like that. So yeah, just make sure that you have the support of your family, friends, partner, and I think it'll go better.
Thank you. Okay, now we're going to move into money. So Karen's going to tell us a little bit about campaign finance, bank accounts, forms, where you have to file. So Karen, go ahead and give us some more of the nitty gritty.
Okay.
Oh, wait.
I have to go to my council meeting.
Okay. Thank you, Esther.
Thank you so
Bye,
much,
Esther.
everyone. Thank you for inviting me to be a part of this group, and I appreciate that. Have a nice evening. Thank you.
We
Thanks,
really
Esther.
appreciate your
Good to see you.
participation. Thank you. And we appreciate all you do. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
One of the first steps when it comes to finance you need to do is open a bank account. And it has to be specifically to the campaign. And it's a good idea to have, two signatories on it, the consultant, or sorry, the candidate, as well as the treasurer, as I mentioned at the beginning about the treasurer's role, so that the candidate doesn't have to worry about that. Both the FPPC site and the local sites detail all the financial rules, and I'm going to show you that site here. Whoops. Okay, so this is the City of Santa Rosa election information site, and it has down here you can see it has all the campaign finance information, and then the FPPC site has a similar information on the state level. There are maximum campaign contributions, and every city is a little different. I was looking at it the other day, and in Sonoma County, it ranges from $100 in some communities to $500. And once again, your city clerk or town clerk, when you go and file your papers, will give you all that information. There are also spending limits. And Santa Rosa has, a number of years ago, enacted a campaign spending limit. And that changes, it's indexed, and I believe it's indexed with the CPI every year. And once again, the city or town clerk will provide you with that information. As I mentioned earlier about the FPPC website, it's a wealth of information, and the people, you can, do a chat with people who work there and can give you information. They have great manuals for different, like they have a financial manual. They have webinars for the treasurer and other people in a campaign. So I would highly recommend you looking at that. And then in addition, the city clerk or town clerk from all your communities is another great resource. And that's it for me on finance.
Okay, thank you. Marta, I think you ran a very inexpensive campaign, and so I don't know if you've had to step away for a minute. Are you there? Okay, I'm going to maybe go to Victoria. Pardon me?
I got something I wanted to offer. If,
yeah, Victoria, why don't you?
There.
Yeah, why don't you talk to Marta comes back?
Yeah, Karen has so much great information. Thank you, and it's great to hear it again as well, because after a couple of years, you start to block it out. It's like having a baby. You're like, okay, that's over. But one thing I wanted to mention, at least in the city of Santa Rosa, the campaign spending limits are not mandatory. They just entitle you to some benefits in terms of like some free, you get listed on the city's website and so forth. And you should look into, there's pros and cons. I'm not a big fan of expensive campaigns, and I didn't spend over the limit at all or get close to it. But I just wanted to offer that I didn't accept the limit because in this new world of district elections, I didn't know whether campaigns were going to be as expensive as they had been in the past, which would have necessitated going over the limit. In the end, district elections so far have been less expensive, and that's really wonderful. Anyway, that's all I had to add.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Marta,
Victoria, for pointing that out. I appreciate it.
We wanted to ask you, because I think you ran a very affordable campaign, and we want to know the magic of how you did that.
Well, I didn't go over $2,500.
Wow.
But then again, we're talking about Cloverdale. It's 9,000 citizens here, residents, people. And what you have to do is you have to ask everybody, give me whatever you can, anywhere from $1 to $50. I didn't want anybody to give me more than $50. And when you do that, people see that you're not really out there for the money, that you're there to pay for the printing of the materials, for all the fees that we have to pay, which I actually have a complaint about the fee. If you want to have things translated, it seems to be higher and ridiculously higher. And it shouldn't be, because that's a way of controlling who gets access to what information. And it also is a way of keeping people from running.
Sure.
Because, these initial fees it's not like if it's $200, it's, $500, $600, $700 or more. And we don't have $700 laying around. But when people start telling you that they want you to run, ask them, please, if you are really supporting my effort, give me a little bit more than what I'm asking everybody else to give. And people didn't give me more than $200 individually, So I had a local person who's very tech savvy, and she helped me with the platform National Builder, which is very inexpensive, also very affordable. And we used social media. But the key here for a low campaign is that you yourself as a candidate need to be committed to knock on everybody's door, especially those precincts that vote. So you need to do a little research, and that's how it goes. And please make sure you follow all the rules when it comes to recording this money and spending this money. That is key. But yes, I think that regardless of how many residents or citizens you have in your district, in your town, you could still run a very affordable campaign, get some very big signs and put them in key places. And that will help you from having to spend more money on more materials.
Great suggestions. Lee, do you have anything to add?
I sure do. I thank you very much. And I want to ditto Marta's comments about the fees in terms of translating the voter pamphlets and things like that. They are pretty lofty. I think in the city of Santa Rosa, they were over $1,000, something like $1,400 or something like that. And then you pay it down the way. You don't necessarily have to pay it right then, but things may change on that. Just wanted to echo what she said about that, because it is a eliminating factor from some people who may want to run. The other comments I'd like to make is that fundraising is a huge consideration about running for office, and it was for me, and I think everybody else. If you're not well known, there's a chance you may have to dig in your own resources, and unless you have the blessings of all those folks we talked about and getting their support to run in the beginning, spouses, significant others, family members, etc., digging into the personal finances could cost you a lot of grief out there on the campaign trail when you don't want to have that kind of grief. So that leaves you then with political consultants who can play a very big role for you, a helpful role, and they're not paying me to say this, but it's true. They can help you raise money because they have a constituency out there that expects certain things to happen with your election. There are these groups out there called political action committees as well, or PACs, PACSs. There are organized labor unions and so forth. There's the real estate industry and all these other people who want to give you funding if they like you and they like your platform. But I'll issue this warning. If you have to use those kind of funds, just understand and know that if you win using these kinds of funds as an elected official, you may run into conflicts down the road as to your position on various issues that come before your governing body, whether it's the town council, city council, or board of supervisors, that you may be in conflict with your political consultants or your PACs and that sort of thing. So that could represent some sort of conflict that you may not have thought about. But I'm telling you because that's something you need to think about before you jump into the ring and start filling up your coffers with money from everywhere, it seems like, and without checking out any expectations and that sort of thing, especially if you want to be an independent kind of person and you're thinking like me. I mentioned the personal funding thing. Those are the two big choices. I think you either raise money, as Marta and Victoria have mentioned, you raise it the best way you can, you honor the town or city limits on it, but don't think just because you honor those limits, that's what your opponent's going to do. Your opponent can come in there and outspend you 3, 4, 5, 10 times. So you have to be ready to answer that by knocking on doors.
Thank you, Lee.
You're
welcome. I think Karen has a few more tips for us on helpful websites that are helpful when you're doing a campaign.
As I mentioned, I've actually already shown them, and they were the City of Santa Rosa general website has information for candidates with a lot of different documents that are good for you to review, because especially when you're going to different forums, you may be asked questions about, the general plan or memorandums of understanding with the labor groups, et cetera. And then the FPPC website also, when you drill down, there's a lot of really good information on that.
So I want to talk a little bit. Oh, go ahead, Martha.
Yes, I need to also say that the League of California Cities, an incredible amount of information for candidates and for city council and other elected officials. So they do provide factual information that is very helpful for candidates. So you could become familiar with the intricacy of how the different departments work and what is the function of the League of Cities as you foresee yourself as an elected official.
Thank you. Thank you for adding that. Before you go away, I want to ask you a follow-up question to something you said earlier. You talked about how you use social media, and that was one of the key things to keeping the campaign affordable. So what platform did you use, or platforms did you use?
Well, as I mentioned, you could have your own website through Nation Builder. And then I use Facebook. Then all the different groups that are on Facebook. It's incredible the amount of people that you do reach. You have to find out who are the voters and what groups do they belong to. And you establish a relationship with them. You announce when you're going to have a talk or a gathering. And you might have one person show up, but then in the next one, you might have two or three. And it's kind of a word of mouth. But I limited myself to write notes to individuals who send me their email and to answer questions on my website and also on my Facebook page.
So Lee, when you campaigned, did you use social media?
Yes, I did. I used Facebook and pretty much through my campaign, not this last campaign, but one I think I ran in 2012 or something. I had an out-of-town consultant, and they were good with putting out information on a letter like Constant Contact, which probably people have heard about. And those are good because they go directly to someone's mailbox, thus their home, and they have your message in it, whatever that might be, and they can show pictures and all that sort of thing. So Nation Builder, as Marta mentioned, that's a good one, and we've used them. Facebook, Instagram, all good.
How about you, Victoria? Did you use social media?
Yeah, I did. I'm not a huge fan, but my consultant managed most of or entirely my candidate page. And in the meanwhile, since being on the council, most of that has moved over to my private page. So it can become overwhelming when you start to get thousands of people who are on your Facebook. I kind of dread, when I go to look at it, I know that there's just no amount of getting through it.
So it can be a blessing and a curse.
Yeah, I know it's helpful in getting the word out. And it's important to remember that different social media platforms, target different demographics. You're going to get more likely voters probably on Facebook, but you're maybe not missing. You might be missing younger people if you're not using Instagram.
Right.
I'm one of the younger people who just can't stand it all, to be honest with you. So I just, for me, I really respect that you ran a low budget campaign, Marta. I think that's awesome. I just personally don't want to deal with social media, and it's worth paying to not have to have that sort of like thing bothering me all the time. So I farmed that out. And there's one other resource I wanted to point out too, which is PDI, which was what I used for data, which is also really helpful. They have, Nation Builder and PDI probably accomplish the same thing, but it's worth checking them both out. And there's this other social media thing that I think is really important, which is real people and real networking and getting to. There's nothing that's quite as strong. You're going to reach more people with social media, but the kind of help and support you'll get from the connections that you from showing up and serving and working on boards and commissions and volunteering your time and actually demonstrating to your community that you care is also really powerful, because we're not talking about running massive races here. We're talking about local races where you will need to use social media, certainly, but it is not going to be enough. You're going to have to go out and the most important tool that I think that any candidate can have is the ability to pick up the phone and start a conversation with someone that they do not know. And by the end of that conversation, have formed some sort of relationship and be able to ask them for money. So.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Martha.
Well, in Cloverdale, as well as in all the other small towns in Sonoma County, and even Santa Rosa, I believe, it's important to go to your coffee houses and to have coffee with the candidates, or coffee with Marta, or coffee with Lee. In that way, people come and ask you questions and you're candid. You don't know what they're going to ask, And you could even host small gatherings as such in your different businesses, either pizza or something as such. And at the same time, it's important that you connect with community leaders to host events for you at their houses and to invite their neighbors. There's nothing more powerful than neighborhood talk.
Thank you. Okay, one final question, and I'm going to ask you.
Debbie,
yes?
Before we go to final questions, I did want to comment on something that I think is important for people to know, that in local elections, like what we're talking about, town and city councils, and even the board of supervisors, there's not a requirement to reveal your political stripes.
Right.
Whether you're Republican, Democrat, or whatever, you're not required to do that. However, word of caution is that people tend to like to get that information anyway through research channels at the registrar, your voting habits and all that. And that includes the media if they think they got a story there. And so people just need to understand before you jump in, changing a party to change your stripes because it's a higher voting population in a particular party than there is another one, or you don't like either one, so you're just going to go independent or whatever. just be aware that there is not a formal requirement to declare your political party, but you will be put in the voter's mind in a party affiliation that they have come to believe about you. And in the case of an African-American Black man like me, my experience has been most people automatically consider me a progressive Democrat, and without even asking me, and that's a good thing at this point. But supposing I wasn't, it's something that once determined, I might lose a share of voters that otherwise might have been counting on me. So I just wanted to make that point, that while you're not required to declare, there is a chance that you could be bucketed in a profile, political profile that doesn't fit you, suit you, or is not true.
Okay,
and I should add to that political parties, they may endorse you, but that doesn't mean they're going to give you any money or any support or any promotion. Right. So beware.
Okay, final question. If you should decide to run again, is there anything you would do differently the next time around? So Victoria, you want to start us off?
Sure thing. I don't know that there's anything in particular that let me think about it for a minute.
Sure, we can come back to you. Marta.
Well, there's always something different that has to be done because you've been on the spotlight for 4 years. Mm-hmm. So you have to be able to defend your positions, your vote. And unfortunately, in our communities, we have people who are one-issue voters. Mm-hmm. And that could really pull you down. It doesn't matter how much sense it makes to vote one way or the other. If that's what they thought that you were going to do for them and you didn't do it, you're out of commission. So what would I do differently? Well, I just need to be able to have my documentation of all the good things I've done for my town. Mm-hmm. To say, look, these are the things that were never done, and these are the things that I did. These are the number of programs that I sponsor, or these are the different organizations that I collaborated with. These are the different organizations that put their eye on Cloverdale. I wanted to help and did help, and I have factual evidence of that happening. So when you run again, you need to make sure that you know what you've done. What have you done right? And if you've done something wrong, make sure that you know how to present yourself and face that situation. I would definitely ask for more money because I did have to go in my personal for about maybe $500. So, it might have not broken my bank, but it could have somebody else. Mm-hmm. And I think that at some point, all of us who are candidates need to work with the registrar in terms of the fees that people who are running. If we really want equity, inclusiveness, and a voice of all, we need to be able to make sure that everybody has the opportunity to run without it being a financial, a financial weight on individuals.
Thank you. Lee, anything you would do differently?
Well, no. I think, I've run at least 5 different campaigns, one of them being for state assembly. And I was pleasantly surprised in a 3-county race like that on $60,000. I won 20% of the vote. So it gets back to money from what I can see. Even in my 2018 city council campaign, I was outspent because money starts coming in from other sources outside the county and stuff like that. So you can't get away from that. You either have to have, depends on the visibility of your campaign too. If people consider it a marquee campaign because there's people dividing up between, let's say, development and environment or some other kind of division, your money is going to be dictated in large measure by your supporters in those 2 different buckets. So money is always going to be a big thing. I think also people should think about their time management of a campaign, because that can be costly to you as well. And what I mean by time management, the moment you get in, there will become a season of interview invitations. Various groups want to interview you, and they're not all interviewing you because they like you or they want to give you money. You have to understand and know that those invitations in some cases are to find out what your platform is and how flexible or you might be to taking on some of their interests, or just flat out doing sort of opposition research, if you prefer that term. So, be careful if you know in the front end that a certain group has not been friendly to you nor supportive. Why waste your time going to sit there and give them all the information about your strategies, your campaign. They'll ask you all the questions about your budget, everything. They'll find the whole thing out. And the unsuspecting candidate will give it up, and then they'll use it against you in some way or other. So be very vigilant about that, and just be aware.
Thank you. Victoria, did anything come to mind that you'd do differently?
I like what Marta and Lee said. I think that it's difficult to turn down interviews, but that you can. There were groups that I went to talk to who I knew flat out would just not interview or not going to endorse me, but I went to talk to them because in the era of an IE, I thought it was good to go out and let people know that you're willing to listen to them, even if they have no intention of endorsing you. And you don't have to answer every question on a questionnaire, for sure. But nonetheless, people will find out and they'll share that information. And you think you're filling out this for one group, and this gets sent to another group. And nothing that you do in a campaign is private. So that's probably really important to manage that. But I don't know yet what I would do differently. I think that, to Marta's point, you know it when you're running as an incumbent versus a first-time candidate. But I'll say there's this one thing that was really helpful to me, which is that I established a don't worry. I have a different word for it, but it's not appropriate for this setting. But it's a don't worry about it bucket. It rhymes with bucket. And everybody, when you get to be a candidate, has an idea of what you should do and how you should do it. And there's some people who are real pros out there, like Karen, who's been doing this stuff for a long time, or strategists or campaign managers and so forth, who really do know what they're talking about. And there's a lot of people who are well-intentioned, but, various things will happen to you. And if you do decide to run, you got to develop what Lee was talking about, a little bit of a thick skin, because people are going to do some crazy stuff to you. It does not matter how good a person you are or how bad a person you are. It's going to come at you. And I don't say this to talk anybody out of it. I say this to prepare yourself to have a container that you can stash all of the unwanted advice, all of the nasty comments, so that you can be effective in continuing on with your campaign, because the amount of it that can come at you, if you take it all in or you take it personally, it makes it very difficult to run.
Okay, thank you. Well, that's all the time that we have for the direct questions from us, but we do want to allow approximately 20 minutes for questions from the audience. And so I've added Leona, who is our voter service chair, and she's going to let us know if we have any questions from the audience. So Leona, do we have any questions?
Yes, there were a couple that came in. I'm sorry that the Gmail thing wasn't posted on the page here. We might have gotten a few more. But anyway, there was a couple of questions. One question that came through is, how important do you feel it is to hire a political consultant?
Anybody want to take that one?
I can speak to that first. I'm Lee. I've had it both ways. I think political consultants provide a great service. They, like I say, they can help you with fundraising. They can help you with messaging. They can help you with historical data on your particular jurisdiction you're running. And I think all of that is well. If you have the time, however, and the team, the two T's, time and team, to do what Marta said she did in her campaign, no matter how big or small your jurisdiction is, there's nothing better than canvassing and knocking on the doors and meeting your voter population, your electorate, because you'll hear firsthand what they want of their city or their town. And then you know what to study and think about. in terms of that same message coming up repeatedly throughout your canvassing. So I think, again, to sum up, consultants are very good. They wouldn't be around if they weren't. And so is knocking on the door if you can muster up the army that you need, the shoe leather.
Marta, did you have a comment?
Well, I did not use a consultant per se. I work with someone who's experienced in this campaigning locally. But in the past, I had worked with consultants when I was working for other candidates. Mm-hmm. And then again, it's like Lee says, if there's an issue that is going to make you or break you, definitely a consultant will be an asset. But if you have the time and you have your team and you have your strategy in order, you have good funding and good vision of where you're going to get your funding, I don't think you would need one. I don't think I would use one if I run again or when I run again coming up, because I know my town, I know what I need to give my town, and I need to communicate to my town who I am, what I've learned, and how I've developed into becoming a better leader, a better spokesperson for the community. So then again, if there's an issue that's going to make you or break you, a consultant. If you don't have your team, you don't have the time, a consultant. But if you could kind of bring it all together in a good strategy with good timelines and good funding, go for it.
So Leona, Victoria, did you have a comment?
Are you talking to me?
Yeah, did you have a comment?
Well, I have another question.
No, you were asking Victoria.
Yeah, Victoria, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I did. One other factor might be also the size of the jurisdiction that you're running in. Mm-hmm. So, I think that there are very few people who are able to pull it off in Santa Rosa and win without a consultant. The last one that I'm aware of was Chris Rogers in 2016, and he had been a staffer for his entire adult life to other political candidates. Mm. So, I think that if you're going to do it without a strategist, you got to have somebody who knows data. You got to have maybe experience working on another campaign, or you got to have be in one of the smaller jurisdictions where you really can get out there and get to know everybody. But I don't think that you should pick between a strategist and knocking on doors. I mean, the pandemic is aside. Mm-hmm. I did both. I knocked on every door and I had a strategist, and that to me is ideal if you've got a bigger size area to cover.
Thank you. Leona, did we have another question?
Yes, we did. This question has to do with in the era of COVID. Since knocking on doors may be problematic, what do you think about dropping campaign material off at doorsteps? Would that work? And what other ideas do you have about reaching out to your potential voters?
So who'd like to take that one?
Debbie, I've got a thought that I think Leona has mentioned. With the COVID in place, obviously there's going to be a lot of skepticism if you're knocking on somebody's door with a mask on your face, and particularly if you look like me. So I would think that there's going to be a lot of using the mail, that kind of program, using flyers, literature as best you can. And then I would not rule out doing just what we're doing right now, having a Zoom town hall, for example. You notice right now a lot of the elected politicians are doing that every day. In fact, I turned down Mike McGuire tonight to do this one. But you don't have a lot of choices if you can't go to the door and speak to folks, you're going to have to become innovative, like most of us who are social distancing have had to do. And so that would be my input: is in the mail, literature, flyers, and Zoom.
Anybody else?
I also think that, going back to neighborhoods, to do like block gatherings where you keep your social distance, you bring your own chair, you sit there after hours, when sun's down and it's a little cooler. And, you have timeline. We're going to be here from 8 to 9. And we have to keep 6 feet, distance. And to do that in several areas of neighborhoods, I mean, it's going to take more time than before. But if you want people to see your face, if you want to hear, if you want to have candid conversations, that's a way to do it. But definitely, you're going to have to spend more on copying material. I mean, production of materials. Again, use every radio station you can to go to interviews, and any TV station programs that might have locally, I don't know, and just do your videos. Do videos in which you speak and you also answer some questions and put those on your platform, on your site, and distribute among friends for them to promote also. So those are the things that we're going to have to rely on now, and to call people.
Victoria?
Yeah, I wanted to directly address the question, which is about knocking on doors in literature, which is, I think that for many candidates in this environment, you can send things through the mail. It's much more expensive, and depending on the size of your jurisdiction and how contested it is, you may need to do that. But I think that in this environment, what you could do, which is, when you do knock on a door, 90% of the time somebody doesn't answer. And so there's another technique that people often do, which is dropping off the literature and walking away. And in COVID, what I would do if that was my situation is I would, instead of knocking on doors, I would go and drop 100 pieces of literature, and then I would go home and I would call those people. And I'd say, I came by your house today, it's social distancing. I wanted to have a conversation with you, but out of respect for, the pandemic and your safety and health, I was hoping you'd be willing to talk with me over the phone instead of face to face. And I think that if you do those two things, you certainly won't get to engage everybody, but that's about as close as you could come to that direct contact in this climate.
Great, thank you. All good ideas. Leona, do we have any more questions?
There are no more questions that came through the Gmail. I did have one comment. I thought Lee, at the very early in this presentation, talked about basically a listening session that he developed, which I thought was a good technique in terms of creating your platform, finding out what your community is concerned about. So I would like to put in a plug for listening sessions for candidates early on.
Great. Well, I want to thank all of our panelists for spending this time with us out of your busy schedules. I want to mention, for anybody that's watching, the League is 100% volunteers. We don't have any staff. It's all volunteers that make this happen. We always welcome new members and new volunteers. So if you want to get involved, we would encourage you to go to our website, and there you can join and become a League member, or you can also make donations there. So we would really encourage people to think about how they could get more involved. And our website is www.lwvsonoma.org. So that's
also Debbie, tell them how they can get this nice shirt here.
Yes, you can get this beautiful T-shirt that Lee is wearing and that I am wearing. Well, you can't really see mine, but we are selling these T-shirts for the centennial, and that's part of how we're raising money to do events like this. And again, you can go to our website, www.lwvsonoma.org, and you can buy a T-shirt. So if you want to get something for your donation, buy a T-shirt. I
I'd
do
like to
want
make
to
one more comment.
Yeah, let me just mention one more thing. I do want to say that this was recorded. We will be putting it on our webpage. We'll also be putting it on the Northern California Public Media webpage, and there will be a Spanish translation. Those should be up by the middle of next week. So please look for that. And yes, Leonie, you had another comment?
Yes, I wanted to mention as another way of getting the word out for candidates is Voters Edge.
Yes.
Voters Edge is a statewide nonpartisan information channel about state propositions and local measures as well as candidates. So if there's a form you respond to, your profile, you can fill it out and it'll be on that on our website. So voters in your district can look that up and find out all about you.
Yes, and I want to conclude by letting people know that we will be doing candidate forums this fall. So please watch for that. And we will also be doing a video recording of the pros and cons on the ballot measures. So that's what the League is about. The League is about having educated voters. It's about encouraging everyone to register to vote. And registering is only step one. Step one is registering. Step two is becoming informed. And step three is remembering to go to the polls. So please pay attention. And I want to urge people, if you are mailing your ballot in, do not wait till the day of the election. Technically, you can wait till the day of the election, but then you're depending on the Postal Service to get it there in 3 days. So if you're going to take the trouble to vote by mail, I really encourage you to send it in before Election Day to make sure it's received in the registrar's office by the deadline and that your vote is counted, because everyone's vote matters. So thank you all for participating. Look for us again in probably the end of August, first part of September, or we'll be back on the road again. So thanks a lot to everyone for participating this evening.